Hey guys, it's Sasha. Over the last few months, a lot has been going on in the world of UK finance. And some of the things that have been going on have been really bad. The Financial Conduct Authority is supposed to be the body that authorizes and regulates the UK finance industry. Banks, lenders, investing companies, and a load of other people are all legally obliged to go and be authorized by the FCA and then to be regulated by them when they're operating. And you would think that having the power of being a regulator, the FCA would ensure that consumer rights are protected and that businesses do not do things that are unfair or that might in some way significantly disadvantage or maybe even penalize their customers without there being a really good reason for doing that. But recently, we've had a load of really big issues, and for some reason, I can't see any public statements or any kind of acknowledgement from the FCA whatsoever. I'm not seeing any enforcement. I'm kind of seeing nothing at all. Why is that? I have absolutely no idea. But let me list a few things that have happened recently where you would expect, or maybe I would expect at least, the regulatory body to have an active interest and to step in and to do something. Maybe they're not aware. In which case, I am very happy to oblige to inform them. If you're watching the FCA, this is what's going on around the UK, just so that you know that maybe you should wake up and do something about it. Because it's kind of not very good. Anyway, first I'm going to be talking about bank accounts, then I'm going to be talking about investing, then I'm going to talk briefly about some shady marketing that really needs the regulator to wake up and look at, because this is serious. Now, first, let's talk about the increasing trend of people having their bank accounts closed for absolutely no good reason. This started some time ago when there was a wave, at least in my completely anecdotal experience, of Monzo closing a disproportionate number of accounts because of suspected fraud or suspected anti-money laundering issues. More recently, I've had hundreds, maybe even thousands of people contact me directly, my tiny little YouTube channel with an even tinier website, about the same thing happening with Monese. People have had an account where, sometimes they get their salary paid into, or at least they have a load of money into it, and they use that account as their primary source of being able to afford to pay for their bills, to pay for their food, to be able to afford to live. And then one day, that account just gets blocked. And you don't get told why it's blocked, which is basically telling you that it's been blocked for a suspected fraud or suspected money laundering reason. And you have absolutely no access to your money. You can't do anything about it. You have weeks. We're talking something like 7 weeks, or in some cases, I think 5 weeks for the actual regulatory process. But sometimes people have to wait until they can start the complaint process, which then takes 35 days to complete, blah, blah, blah. People have to wait a really long time in order to be able to access their money. And in that time, they have absolutely no recourse to anything. They can't go and pay for their bills using their money. They can't do anything. They have to rely on borrowing or on asking their friends or family to support them. Or if they don't have that, they have to come up with other ways of trying to get some money urgently. And although this does happen from time to time with all banks, the issue I have is that with some of these cases, there seems to be hundreds times more people experiencing these issues than with others. And I get complaints about all of them. I get complaints about high street banks, I get complaints about Starling that I personally use and really like. But with some of the ones that I mentioned, this seems to be happening way more. The excuse that these companies give is that it is a regulatory requirement, except that is a complete load of BS. Because it isn't the regulatory requirement that forces them to do this, it is their completely incompetent way of applying that regulatory requirement as a process within their operation that is causing so many people to be experiencing these kind of issues. I've seen a lot of complaints where people say that they've had HMRC payments, for example, paid into their account, and this is a one-off large payment, and that triggers the account to be closed for investigation. In some cases, people who move from abroad to the UK, they go and put a load of money into their account as they are moving to help with their initial costs, etc., living expenses, and that also triggers the exact same issue, and those accounts get blocked and they can't access their money either. For many weeks, they can't access their wages that are being paid to them, and to me, the number of complaints that I'm getting seems extremely excessive. So one of two things is true. Either the companies that do this have a severe overexposure to fraudsters in their total number of accounts, in which case they are completely failing in identifying fraud cases when those people apply, which is a massive issue and you would think the regulator would be interested in, or that isn't the case and they are incorrectly dealing with suspected fraud cases where they are being way too harsh and affecting people's lives in ways that they really shouldn't. In which case you'd also think the regulator would want to have something to say about it. So which one of these is it? Because it's got to be one of them, right? Anyway, sure, there might be a reason in which my experience and my number of complaints and the things that I'm seeing and the things that people send to me is completely anecdotal and is in no way representative of what's actually happening out there. Although with the volume that I am getting, I somehow doubt it. Is the FCA okay that these companies are doing this, the companies that they regulate? Is it okay that this many people are unable to go and access their money? If I am getting this number of complaints, we're talking many hundreds, probably over 1,000. What is the total size of the problem? Is it hundreds of thousands of people? For some reason, I can't see anything publicly acknowledging or any statement from the FCA whatsoever. I am guessing that maybe those same people that are coming to me are also complaining to them. Are they all genuine fraud cases? Anyway, next up is investing. We have seen all kinds of crazy things happen over the past month. Starting from the events in late January, platforms have been restricting the buy and sell of stocks arbitrarily because of technical issues, because their third-party broker has issues, or some other number of different reasons. None of them related to money, of course. None of them at all related to their relationships with third parties. None of them at all related to the cash flow issues. Definitely not. I've been assured of that very strongly. We've repeatedly seen platforms that were unavailable for large stretches of time. In some cases, when the market's open, the platform basically freezes up for long periods of time. We've seen recently a platform go down for an entire day, which just happened to be on the day when the entire stock market collapsed by about 10%. We have seen these companies spend millions and millions on very expensive advertising campaigns trying to bring in as many customers as possible using very well-known Hollywood actors instead of investing in their infrastructure to ensure that these kind of things don't happen and can't happen. And then these platforms go and change the rules on which trades you can and can't do, and sometimes the minimum amounts for some particular kinds of trades get increased by 100 times because, they have too much volume and you, the customer, should have to suffer because you were baited with one particular offer which allowed you to do one particular set of things, but once you're a customer, then that can just change arbitrarily based on what the platform feels like doing. That's perfectly okay. Now, I do understand that free or free-ish platforms will potentially not be as good as paid ones. I have a whole video about it. I do get it. I do understand it. And I actually use these platforms that I'm talking about, and I actually like them quite a lot because they do allow regular people like me to be able to invest without having to pay huge fees of like £12 per transaction, without having to have a minimum of 5,000 just to get started, without having to spend many thousands just to invest in one company as a minimum. I do really like what these guys do. For example, Trading212 and eToro are two companies that have been guilty of some of the things that I just mentioned earlier. And I do like them, but it doesn't stop me from having the kind of opportunity to highlight that perhaps there should be a bit more oversight in how these companies go about their business. Because although I think they're doing great things on average, surely there should be some kind of way for the regulator to come and say, look, some things need to be addressed, and maybe it is really urgent and important for those things to not have the opportunity to happen again in the future. Should they step in and do something? In the US, the government has become involved. We've seen the House Committee publicly address the Robinhood CEO among lots of other people and hedge funds and things like that. When exactly the same sort of stuff happened in the UK, literally nothing happened. The FCA haven't released as much as a public statement about anything to do with it. Do they not care? Real people are like losing real money here, and this is really affecting people's savings. There's a lot of question marks. Where is the regulator? Last, let's talk about the rise of influencer marketing. I talked about this already, so I'll keep this very short and on point. We have people on social media and on YouTube who are actively misleading people by marketing companies being paid for it without making any kind of disclosure, without even pretending to care about their customers, without having with the audacity of trying to tell those people that these companies are really great just because they are being paid to do so. We have people who have made severe misrepresentations of their investing performance. They're actively saying that the performance of their portfolios and specific investments are completely different to the reality. They sometimes provide financial advice, and on some of these cases, these people then go and say that, well, it's not my fault. I didn't really understand it. But in my opinion, this isn't good enough. In my opinion, sort of saying that you didn't quite understand, or maybe your interpretation of what the legal requirements were, are grey in some way, I think that's just not good enough, because there is a regulatory environment and there is a regulator whose job it is to go and speak to these people and explain these kind of things to them, because a lot of people are risking getting really bad information as a result of this. A lot of people are risking being sold things in an illegal way. And I think that is a really big issue. Why am I seeing absolutely nothing done about any of these issues that I just mentioned? Why am I the only one who seems to be talking about it? Why haven't I seen other videos and other people come out and say, look, this is not okay? Why is that? Let's see if things change, because in my completely personal, totally unprofessional opinion, this situation that we're in right now is just not good enough. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.